Hi, I'm Chad with Move Forward Guitar. This lesson is from our course, Music Theory 2. All the lessons for this course are free on YouTube, so you can follow right along with the playlist or look in the description below for links to the rest of the lessons. To accelerate your learning though, I highly recommend you download the corresponding Music Theory 2 workbook and eGuide. To learn more about the workbook and eGuide, click the link on the screen or look in the description below. Welcome to Music Theory 2, Lesson 12. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about the relative minor and minor keys. So in the last lesson, we discussed the natural minor scale and how it was its own scale, but it comes directly out of the major scale. A major scale is built with whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. A natural minor scale is built with whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. And that was just rearranging these steps up here. It was just starting in a different spot and going through them from the sixth note. So a C major scale is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, back to C. An A natural minor scale is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, back to A. Those are all the exact same notes as each other, just rearranged. And the way we found it was taking the C major scale, going up to the sixth note, and then just going through, carrying out the rest of the notes out. So we're starting on A, making that our tonic, and then we get A, B, C, D, E, F, G, back to A, which is what we have right here. So the C major scale, A natural minor scale have the exact same notes. You're just starting on a different spot for the A natural minor scale, and you have a new tonic, which changes the relationship of the intervals to that tonic, which we talked about in the last lesson. And if you're really struggling with that, maybe go back and watch that last lesson again. But like I said, I'm going to go over this a lot of times through these lessons and courses, so over time it'll make a lot of sense to you. But everything's also in your eGuide. You can look that up as a reference at any time. In this lesson, I want to talk about what's called the relative minor and minor keys. In a previous lesson, we talked about the major keys, which are coming straight out of the major scale. This lesson, I want to talk about minor keys. And what we talked about in the last lesson with the natural minor relates directly to this, and we'll tie it all together. So in the previous lesson, when we talked about the major scale keys, or major keys, I showed you this chart, and I explained that this first column are your major scales if you go this way. So you have A major, B flat major, and so on. But they're also your keys. So this would be the key of A, this would be the key of B flat, and so on. But there's also something called minor keys. And just like a major scale is happier and brighter than a minor scale is darker and sadder, a major key is happier and brighter, and a minor key is darker and sadder. They create the same effects. So to find the minor keys, you actually do the exact same thing we did when we found the natural minor in the last lesson. So if I just start on any key, if I'll start on the key of C, since there's no sharps and flats, it's just easier. If we count up to the sixth note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we end up on A. You'll remember from the last lesson, that's how you found your natural minor scale. That's also how you find what's called your relative minor key. So this column here is your major keys. This column here are your minor keys. So these minor keys you would carry out just like you did with the natural minor scale. So you'd have F sharp, G sharp, A, then B, C sharp, D, E, back to F sharp. You could just carry that out this way. I just didn't do that because it takes up too much room. It can get kind of confusing. So if I wanted to create a song using chords and melodies and stuff that came directly out of the key of C major, if I revolved everything around the C and made this my home base, I'm going to end up with a happier and brighter sound. If I revolved it around A and made this my tonic or my home base, I'm going to come up with a darker, sadder sound. They're both going to have the same notes and chords in them. It just depends what I make my tonic and how I revolve the song around those rearranged notes and chords. So what we can say is that A is the relative minor of C. but we can also reverse it. We can say that C is a relative major of A. And what I want to demonstrate now is how I can take chords and notes coming directly out of the C major scale. If I make C my tonic and revolve it around C and the C major chord, I get a happier, brighter sounding song. But then if I change it up and make A my tonic and revolve everything around the sound of A and the A minor chord, I get a darker, sadder sound, even though I'm using the exact same chords and the exact same notes. It just matters what I'm making my tonal center, which again just comes to rearranging these notes and what I emphasize. So here's a demonstration of that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play two separate chord progressions and do a little improvising over both. And for the first progression, I'm going to play a C major chord progression. The chords will be C, G, A minor, F. So all chords straight out of the C major scale. And then for the second chord progression, I'm going to play the chord progression A minor, C, E minor, F. So again, they're all chords straight out of the C major scale, but they're rearranged, so now it's revolving around A minor, so that's an A minor chord progression instead of a C major chord progression. So the first one's a C major chord progression, second one's an A minor chord progression. But all the chords come straight out of the C major scale. And when I improvise over them, I'm going to use notes straight out of the C major scale and notes straight out of the A natural minor scale, which are all the same notes. So hopefully you'll be able to hear with these two examples how even though you're using the same chords and notes, or same chords and notes from the parent major scale, in this case C major scale, the chord progression that I've revolved everything around the C major chord and played a C major chord progression is going to sound a lot brighter and happier than the chord progression where I revolved everything around the A minor chord and created an A minor chord progression. So here are those two examples. So hopefully you can hear the difference how when I was playing the first example in the key of C major, it was a brighter sound. When I was playing the second example in the key of A minor, it was a darker sound, even though I was pulling from the same chords and same notes, which all come out of the C major scale. And that's why they're called relative to each other, because they're using the same notes and same chords. Or if we were to look at this in music notation, as I mentioned in the previous lesson, when you see something like this in music notation, that's representing what's called the key signature, and that's a quick way to reference what key you're in. And for example, it falls right along with what I talked about. The key of C isn't showing anything because the key of C or the C major scale doesn't have any sharps or flats. The next one with one sharp was the key of G. You can see that right here. It has one sharp. And so on. The next one was key of D with two sharps. You can see that right here. And when you get good at reading music notation, you can quickly look at these key signatures and know what key you're in. But it's only telling you part of the story, because actually every key signature can either be a major key or a minor key. So for example, if we start here, there's no sharp or flat, we know that's either in the key of C or the key of A minor, and that's because A minor is the relative minor of C, and A minor shares all the same notes and chords as the C major scale or the key of C. So when you're looking at a piece of music, you need to look further into the music notation to know if it's actually a major key or a minor key, and that's going to be determined by what's going on in the actual song, and whether it's revolving around a C as a tonic or the A or A minor as a tonic. And don't worry too much about this if you don't know anything about music notation or if this seems overwhelming. I just want to throw this at you for now. Keep it in the back of your mind. You have the charts in your eGuide to use as a reference. It's something you'll come back to probably for years to come, so it's really useful to be able to look at it this way. But I just want to touch on it for now. And again, these are things that we're going to hit on so many times that eventually it'll all just click and you'll understand why I'm even touching on it now. But if you're still a little confused, just keep going through these lessons and we'll keep coming back to it. So that's looking at key signatures. Now I want to look at the circle of fifths again, or the cycle of fourths, and show you one new thing that I've written out on it. And before, I didn't have these notes in here in red. I had the ones in black on the outside, and I told you that these were the major scale keys in the black notes. And C starts with 0 sharps, G has 1 sharp, D has 2 sharps, and so on. If you go this way with the cycle of fifths, or if you go back, again, you start with C with 0 sharps or flats, F has 1 flat, B has 2 flats, or B flat has 2 flats, E flat has 3 flats, and so on. And these were all your major scale keys, which pertain to this right here. The key of C has 0 sharps, the key of G has 1 sharp, and so on. Just going through the cycle of fifths, I've just written it out the same way, but just vertically. And then in the inside, I've written out the relative minors. So that means that the key of C major has 0 sharps or flats, or the C major scale has 0 sharps or flats, but the key of A minor has the same. It has 0 sharps or flats, or the A minor scale, the natural A minor scale, has 0 sharps or flats. Just like the G major scale, or the key of G, has 1 sharp, the E minor scale, the E natural minor scale, or the key of E minor has 1 sharp, just like the key of G. So here's just another chart that you can use, something that might not be too useful to you right now, but again, it's something you'll come back to a lot. So it's in your eGuide, always there for a reference as we go deeper into music theory. And if you ever get into reading music, these will be really valuable tools to you. And like I said, once we get deeper and deeper into these lessons and courses, you'll understand why I've shown you this stuff now, because it's laying a foundation for what we need to build to go deeper into music theory. So that's an explanation of the relative minor and minor keys. In the next lesson, I'm going to discuss scale patterns and scale positions. Look in your Music Theory 2 workbook for step-by-step guidance on how to retain this information and what to do next. And remember, all the charts and diagrams for this lesson are in your Music Theory 2 eGuide for you to reference at any time.